Most of the internet runs on fiber optic cables, and fiber has to be physically built everywhere it reaches, through mountains, across oceans, into every neighborhood. In dense cities, that investment makes sense. In rural Montana or the rugged, landslide-prone peaks of the Japanese Alps, it often doesn't. Cell towers fill some of that gap, but even in a hyper-connected nation like Japan, geography leaves nearly 40% of the landmass in a dead zone. While 99% of the population lives within reach of a tower, the vast forests, mountains, and remote islands are effectively cut off. Satellite internet seemed like the answer, until you hit the physics. Legacy geostationary satellites sit 72,000 kilometers away round trip, and even at the speed of light, that journey takes about half a second. For streaming or web browsing, most people never notice. But for anything that depends on low ping, from video calls to emergency coordination, that half second makes itself known. SpaceX's answer was to bring satellites much closer to Earth. Instead of a few satellites parked 36,000 kilometers up, Starlink operates thousands of them between 300 and 600 kilometers above the surface, in what's called low Earth orbit. That altitude drop cuts the round trip from half a second to between 25 and 60 milliseconds, on par with a cable broadband connection for most uses, and faster than undersea fiber cables for long distance routes. Old satellite internet was like shouting to someone on the moon and waiting for them to shout back. Starlink is more like talking to someone on a plane flying overhead. At this altitude, satellites move fast, around 27,000 kilometers per hour. Any given satellite crosses the sky in minutes. The system is built around that reality. When you open a web page on Starlink, your device sends a request to the dish outside, which focuses it into a narrow beam and fires it up to a passing satellite. If there's a ground station within range, a large antenna connected to the same fiber network that carries most of the world's internet traffic, the satellite routes your data straight down to Earth, where it travels to whatever server you're trying to reach. If there's no ground station nearby, the satellites handle it themselves. Starlink satellites carry optical inter-satellite links, infrared lasers that let them communicate directly with each other. Your request gets passed from one satellite to the next across the constellation until it can reach the ground. Each satellite is traveling in its own orbital path, and yet they sustain laser connections continuously, with accuracy measured in fractions of a millimeter across thousands of satellites at once. Light travels roughly 30% faster through the vacuum of space than through fiber optic glass. Once the data arrives at the ground, it travels to the server, and the response makes the same journey in reverse, back up to a satellite, across the network if needed, down to your dish, and onto your screen. The dish manages all of this without moving an inch. It uses what's called a phased array antenna, a flat panel containing thousands of tiny components, each capable of adjusting the timing of its signal. When those adjustments are coordinated across the entire array, the beam can be steered electronically in any direction, almost instantaneously, with no moving parts. From the outside, it looks completely still. What's actually happening is a continuous, invisible process of recalculation, tracking a network that never stops moving. Today, that network includes over 10,000 satellites, serving more than 10 million customers across 160 countries. The hardware has also come down in size. The current Starlink Mini is roughly the size of a thick tablet and fits in a backpack. That said, the technology has a specific set of constraints that matter depending on where and how you use it. The dish requires a clear, wide view of the sky. Trees, buildings, or nearby terrain can degrade the signal, which rules out some locations that might otherwise benefit from the service. Weather is also a factor. Heavy rain or dense snow can weaken the connection, and while Starlink is more resilient than older satellite systems, severe conditions still cause slowdowns. Cost remains a real barrier. The hardware and monthly subscription are more expensive than standard broadband in areas where fiber is already available. And as the user base has grown, congestion has become an issue in densely populated areas and during peak hours. Performance in urban environments can be inconsistent. Those last two problems, capacity and cost, are what the next generation is specifically designed to address. SpaceX is now preparing to launch a new generation of Starlink satellites, and the rocket carrying them changes everything. Until now, every satellite had to fit inside a Falcon 9 rocket, a fairing about 5 meters wide. Starship removes that constraint entirely. The new V3 satellites weigh around 2,000 kilograms, roughly 2.5 times the mass of a V2 Mini. Each one is rated for 1 terabit per second of downlink capacity, a 10-fold jump over the current generation. And where a Falcon 9 carries up to 29 satellites per launch, Starship carries around 60, meaning a single mission adds 60 terabits per second to the network, more than the total capacity of all commercial satellites combined just 5 years ago. V3 satellites also carry onboard processors capable of handling computation in orbit, working in space before anything ever reaches the ground. SpaceX is exploring that capability as the basis for space-based data centers, which for certain high-demand applications could push latency below what any ground-based infrastructure can offer. Managing a constellation heading toward 15,000 satellites requires collision avoidance at a scale that has no precedent. And because Starlink satellites are designed to burn up every 5 years, we are now seeing roughly 1 re-entry every 15 hours. New 2026 National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration studies suggest this is creating a permanent layer of aluminum oxide in the upper stratosphere, what scientists are calling a stratospheric aerosol effect, which could reflect sunlight and potentially alter the southern hemisphere polar vortex, affecting global weather patterns. The bigger these constellations get, the more that matters. At the same time, the network itself is being used for things that go well beyond home internet. Starshield is a government-facing version of the network, built on the same underlying technology but hardened for military use. Encrypted communications, secure payloads, and Earth observation capabilities for US and allied forces. Some of those satellites don't appear on any public tracker. They share the V3 chassis but carry high revisit imaging sensors, giving the US military the ability to photograph any point on Earth every few minutes. The line between Starlink and Starshield is deliberately blurry, but Starshield represents SpaceX's push into infrastructure that no ground-based network can match for global reach. Then there's Direct-to-Cell, now branded as Starlink Mobile. Those V3 satellites also connect directly to the standard LTE and 5G chips in an unmodified smartphone, just the phone already in your pocket with nothing else required. SpaceX has now launched over 650 dedicated Direct-to-Cell satellites, and the service is in carrier beta with T-Mobile, currently supporting location sharing and low bandwidth messaging through apps like WhatsApp and Signal. Voice and high bandwidth data are technically ready. Trials were successful in late 2025, but are awaiting final FCC clearance over concerns that the signal could interfere with existing cell towers. For years, Starlink operated without a real competitor in the low Earth orbit space. That changed when Amazon rebranded its long-delayed Project Kuiper to Amazon Leo and began rolling out an enterprise preview for business customers in late 2025, with a wider commercial rollout to follow across markets including the US, UK, Germany, France, and Canada. Amazon is starting from a significant deficit, now operating around 200 satellites following successful Ariane 6 and Atlas V launches in early 2026, targeting 700 by July to meet its FCC milestones. But it's betting on a different angle. Because Amazon owns one of the world's largest cloud infrastructures, data traveling through Amazon Leo feeds directly into AWS, which for businesses means a dedicated space-based connection into cloud services they're already using. The hardware comes in 3 tiers: the Nano for portable use, a Standard Pro for home use, and an Ultra aimed at higher demand connections. And to close the consumer gap with Starlink, Amazon has begun bundling the Nano with Prime memberships at a subsidized hardware cost, reportedly under $300 in some markets. Amazon is launching on a mix of Atlas V and its own New Glenn rockets, targeting a constellation of around 3,200 satellites by 2029. Whether that's enough to compete with Starlink's head start is an open question, but it's a credible one.